not different. It was non-existent. That's how it was. Yeah, it's changed. It's changed massively. The band was formed in '84. The only true original member of the band actually is Mahesh. Because Mahesh and a few other guys, Mark Selvin, Jayesh Gandhi, who was the first guy? Was it Buddy or yeah, that's me. So there were a few other guys that started the band. There's another singer called Ian Santamaya. I joined them soon after because the singer was leaving. He was moving to Canada. So I joined them at the end of '84, played my first gig in '85, and then Zubin joined a few months after that. So I'd been one gig old, and Zubin joined. He didn't have a keyboard player until then. Zubin joined. So that's when the band started. Conceived and played a couple of gigs in '84. '85 is when we really started to get active with the band and started to play a lot of gigs and travel across the country. The question was, how is it different infrastructurally? There really was no infrastructure. So what we did in those days was pretty much if somebody booked us, which is usually a college or some very brave promoter somewhere from some part of the country, we would get paid, I think, princely sum of 3,000 rupees was a high price at that time. And we travel by bus or by train with all our equipment. Here's the infrastructure part, or the scene, how it's different now. Because then you didn't really have good sound companies, you certainly didn't have instruments anywhere else. And if there was a sound company that had reasonably decent PA, they certainly didn't have a backline. So no amplifiers, no drum kit, no nothing. So we had to travel with all our amps, all our guitars, drum kit with the rig stand space, cymbals, this and the other. Jay will testify to how back-breaking a PA. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Usually people say, you're a drummer, that's your problem, and unfortunately we couldn't. A drummer would have died after the first show. He had to pick up all his own gear. But now, of course, it's completely different. I mean, it's far more organized. There's good sound companies in different parts of the country. Those days, it used to be pretty much open-air gigs. So a promoter had to raise money from the sponsor, put up a stage, erect a stage, get a PA and all that kind of stuff. So it was a little more, it was a larger enterprise. Now there are a lot more indoor venues. Today's gig, of course, tonight's gig is a big outdoor with the big race stage and everything. But there are so many clubs now across the country that are already equipped for live music performance, and it's changed quite a bit. It's a hell of a lot.
Also your personal instruments. In those days, there was no way you could go to a shop and buy your instrument. In fact, my first real keyboard I had
good instruments.
Yeah.
You got Peter Purana guitar.
Yeah. But
best forgotten.
A decent keyboard, if you had to buy, the closest place was Hong Kong. So it was crazy. Not everyone can take a flight to Hong Kong and buy your instrument. Or you had to wait for someone to come down and bring it from abroad, which meant there was no question of trying out a guitar or trying out your drum kit or whatever. Whatever the guy brought is what you owned, and you just learned to love it. That was the way it was. Now you can walk into a store anywhere and buy so many things. That's a big thing.
It's actually affected the way bands sound when they start out. Bands, on the one hand, sounded a lot less professional also because, as Zubin said, your gear just wasn't good enough. Today, the starting point, at the starting blocks itself, the band has got good gear. The musicians are far more aware of their sound because you've got good world-class amps and pedals and guitars and stuff to work with. So you can really work on your tones. You've got the internet, you've got YouTube, you can get instruction videos on YouTube itself. Those days we used to pretty much be driving past Padika Bazaar last night. There's the underground market where we used to buy VHS tapes of guitar instruction things. Now you pretty much just log on. It's on YouTube for free. So bands, it's really good in very, very many ways that the starting blocks are so much further ahead. So it's a good way. It's a good time.
So was it just passion for music for you guys to actually face all this hardship, or was there something else too besides passion which led you in this?
I think the fact that we didn't listen to our parents had a big role to play in it. Yeah, it was pretty much passion for music. We were not all friends necessarily to begin with. Not everyone knew each other. So Mahesh and the other guitar player Jayesh knew each other. They had heard of Mark, the bass player. So they got in touch with me and said, "Hey man, let's form a band," that kind of thing. I bumped into Mahesh when I was in my 11th standard in college in Bombay. I'd heard of Zubin, so it sort of came together in that way. The thing that unified all of us was just the love of rock music and the unquenchable desire to go up and play it. And every time you go on stage, I guess the point was, with all the crap that we went through, every time we got up on stage and played the music, the rush was just so tremendous. It's like, it's like being a junkie. The feeling was so good that whatever the process was, you just want to get back and get that fix again. There was absolutely no rational reason, logical, practical, or rational reason anyone would join a band and try and make it go over the best.
In 1984, basically the rock scene was Guns N' Roses and you had AC/DC. Did you think people would accept you? Like at that time, Indian band singing in English. Did you think it would be easy?
That's why we changed the name. Induscreed, make it a little more, a little ethnic flavor. We changed the sound also for the third album. We had a lot of Indian instruments and stuff. So yeah.
I think the question was more of whether people would accept us as an Indian rock band. No, Rock Machine is still
Indians accept us locally or accept us internationally? We didn't have a problem there.
Yes,
we wanted to. Yes. We want to step out of the country and do something. So we had to have a different identity, not sound like any other band, Western band. So that was the reason.
No, but you're saying in '84, it's around the 80s.
80s, mid 80s actually.
Yeah.
See, I think we were one of the first bands that were trying to promote our own material, in a very serious way. And I think the bass player Mark was principally responsible in those days for really pushing us and driving us to do that. Because in the beginning it was a little difficult. Audiences were not accustomed to Indian bands singing their own stuff. And if you haven't heard a tune before, sometimes you're disconnected. And also I think one of the reasons is in those days you didn't have too many foreign acts coming down. You didn't obviously have YouTube, etc. So you didn't have exposure to foreign acts. So what happened was the audience came expecting you to play what they were used to. So you became their Deep Purple, their Pink Floyd, their Doors, or whatever they wanted to hear in those days. But now, it's so beautiful to find that every festival we go to, every band plays their own material, and the audiences have come to accept that. They don't want to hear Deep Purple playing, by an Indian band, because Deep Purple's already played in Delhi or Bangalore just 6 months ago, a year ago. So I think that has changed the situation a bit, and we really, really focused on trying to promote our own stuff, because very early in life we realized that there'll be a time where you just platter out playing cover material, and then what? Then you'll just go like any other band playing festivals, and then it'll all die out. So the only way was to show your own thing, to give something to the people that you believed in and you'd written, and was your sound, whatever you want to call it. And it had to be done judiciously. It was mixed in with
sneakily.
Yeah, put it with cover material and quickly do 2 songs of a really popular band, then sneak in one of ours, and then see the response. And it was good. Then you announced, oh, that was a tune by us, blah blah. If it wasn't, then you just moved on quickly to the next tune, and that's how it built up. But it changed, I think, in the early 90s when MTV first came into India, and they were looking to promote local acts. And I think we were doing very well at that point. I would say we were pretty much at the peak of our sort of Indian.
Yeah, we had 2 albums out.
Yeah, and they really latched on to us as the great Indian hope, and they really pushed us. So then we had videos. So when you have a video which is on air 5 times a day, it makes a big, big difference, because the music gets into the people, and they come for the show. You want to hear that song because you've been hearing it all around. So it's sort of catch-22. In the older days, you didn't have an album, and so the audience didn't know your material. And if you didn't know your material and you weren't really popular, you didn't have an album. So it was kind of like a chicken and egg situation.
Yeah, but I think
something like this was actually inevitable. The collapse of the music industry was going to happen when the World Wide Web was invented, because it basically gave access to the entire world through a digital medium. And when broadband speeds started to increase, which means download speeds started to increase and upload speeds, it was inevitable. Now, the good of course, right now it's a bit anarchic because the music industry is trying to figure out how to make it work. The beautiful thing about that is, for the most part, the power brokers have lost their control, and they lost their power to the record companies. Now, record companies aren't necessarily bad things to begin with, but they turned into these pillars, and very few of them, the 5 major labels, they had so much power because they had the power to not just fund albums, but to distribute. Distribution being the key. Today, distribution, nobody needs a record company anymore. Nobody even needs record companies to fund the album, because technology has changed to such an extent. If you're an electronic musician, you never have to leave your bedroom to create stuff. You create really good stuff. If you're a live band like us, you can still do a lot. It it costs a little more money because you need to go into a good studio and record drums well and that kind of stuff. But so now bands have the capability of recording their own material at a lower price. They have the means to distribute it themselves. Nobody needs a record company anymore. Labels today basically have one particular purpose, and that's marketing. That's where the viral aspect comes in, because there's pretty much one standard for everyone now. It's a level playing field. You've got YouTube, you've got MySpace, you've got Facebook. Everyone's got the same thing to work with. How do you make it work for yourself? On the one hand, of course, most importantly, you've got to do it really well. Write good songs, play them well, play them hard. Be tireless. You can't get tired too quickly, and don't be discouraged. You got to be inventive in the way you market these things. And that's the hard part. Because most musicians don't really think in those terms. The most successful ones are the ones who managed to find a way to do it. Even in the early days, when it was Peter Gabriel or Madonna, they understood the business. Or David Bowie, they knew the business. And they're YouTube. They understand the business. It's not just about writing good songs. Because there are plenty of bands that write fantastic music, are great musicians, but go nowhere. So there is all of that. And of course, the most important thing in any of this is luck. If you don't have luck, it's not going to work for you. There is that part, which is to never stop you from trying to make it happen. So yeah, whether it's viral marketing or overt marketing, that's really very, very important to me, because it has now become a level playing field for all musicians. But it's great, because what's happened today is it's taken away, what it's done is it's taken away, or rather it's muddied up the whole concept of genres. Genres, again, are pretty much a record company invention. There used to be brick and mortar stores, like Tower Records in the US, for example, and you had a certain amount of limited shelf space. You needed to put certain things up on those shelves, so you had certain record companies would start to define those forms of music: rock, pop, hip hop, R&B, soul, jazz, and that and the other. What's happened today is there is no need for any shelf space, because the shelf is like as large as the universe on the internet today. So what's happening is bands today are breaking genres, bending genres, and merging things, whether it's Amy Winehouse or anecdotal like progressive rock band from Sweden or whoever it is. They're mixing things, and what's happened, at least what I believe and what I'm being exposed to today, is just some of the most fantastic music I've heard in a long, long time. Just because it's out there. Of course, there's a lot of crap as well. You've got to wade through a lot of crap to find the gems. But those gems are beautiful. And if you can find that, it's a great world for the music business and for music lovers.
It's going to be difficult to be exposed to these things, and I think the only way you're going to learn is if you're just sharp enough and intelligent enough to know that somewhere down the line you're going to need help from professional people to do this. So for example, if you're a young band today, first of all, I wouldn't dream of going anywhere around without a good manager, because a good manager will really tap you into good shows. And good shows means exposure, it means money, which is important. From many perspectives, you need the money to sustain yourself, you need the money to buy your equipment. I think you also need the money in this country to convince your folks that you're going to make it doing what you're doing. I think that's important. Personally, for me, my folks were very supportive of whatever I did. I never had to fight with them, whatever. But there was a time when we had an interview with Time magazine or something. I don't know what it was exactly, but Time had an article on Shining India or whatever. And the picture on the article was Rock Machine standing. And I remember my aunt calling me from Germany and saying, that lecture I gave you about not doing music and all, you're in Time magazine. That was a big thing, You just sort of convince everybody's parents that there is some future, there's something here, whatever. I think that's important. So you have to be a little sharp. You have to find professional people to handle that for you somewhere down the line. At 17, 18, it's difficult to know who to go to and what to do. But as you grow a little older, I think that comes. You do need professional help, because most musicians are horribly bad at managing finances and figuring out how much and whatever.
Rushad is smiling like, yeah man, I've been there. So what's your perspective on this?
And you see many examples of musicians abroad, really successful guys at one point of time, and absolutely totally broke, just because they were too busy having a good time and never read the fine print in the contract or whatever. So I think at the end of the day, you just have to be a little sharp. You can't just expect to say, okay, I'm a singer and I'm going to sing and people love me and that's it now. The rest will take care of itself. It doesn't work like that anymore. I don't think it's ever worked like that, but definitely not in today's times.
I think musicians just having a good time is a perfect time to segue to Rushad. Rushad, give us your perspective.
I think what you said is like totally right. I can't explain anything further.
No, but so I guess you guys, having played with so many young new bands, Jay and Rushad are some of the most active musicians today on the circuit in Bombay and certainly across the country. They're playing with a lot of different bands. So how are they doing their thing?
I think you need to have a little basic knowledge of what's happening, like who's booking your gigs, and then you have to follow up on like the money and stuff like that. But the best option, I guess, if you don't have a manager, is you assign a task to everyone in the band. Like one guy follows up with the money, he becomes like the band manager, or someone gets the promotional aspect of it. Someone could be like stage guy, like he's in charge of everything. But if you don't have a manager, but I'd say that you should get a manager as soon as possible. It really helps. Like all the little things are taken care of, and you can focus on just playing music, which is what we do as musicians. I'm not like a businessman or anything, but I know like if I'm given charge to take care of the money, I keep calling the guy whoever booked the gig and saying like whatever things like that. But yeah, I think you do need a manager. It's pretty important.
It's interesting what Jay just brought up about assigning tasks, because that's how it was.
Yeah, pretty much that's what we did.
Yeah, pretty much until we hired a British guy in the Middle East, and that was, we hired Russell Mason to take the band outside the country, which is when we changed the name to Induscreed. So even after that, within India, we managed ourselves completely. And it was assigning tasks. So Jayesh Gandhi, the guitar player, the other guitar player, he handled all the negotiations, contracts, that kind of stuff. Post-party plans as well was part of it. So that was Mahesh's job. Zubin and Mark used to handle the accounts of all the bands, all the finances and stuff. Mark, the bass player, was also the thinker of the band, so he thought a lot of stuff about a marketing strategy. I dealt with all the press and publicity and being the front man. I always got more attention because I was a communicator. Also, nobody else wanted to do the interviews, so I was doing all the interviews.
How things have changed now.
Mahesh was just in charge of keeping all the female fans happy, and he did that pretty well. And also there was a songwriter. Mahesh and I used to write tunes together. So Mahesh would come up with compositional ideas. I would write melodic and lyrical ideas to it. Mark wrote songs by himself as well. Zubin came in on the production level. Zubin never really got on the songwriting process as much as when the songs were written and structured, he came in on the production level. So there was a lot of breaking up of tasks. But that's really, really critical in a democratic multi-musician setup. Because it can get pretty crazy. We fought like maniacs in the year. Oftentimes we think that people would think that we were about to break up. Mahesh and Jayesh were the closest to friends who fought the hardest. But after the rehearsal was over, the first thing you do is pack your stuff up, go and get a drink together, and all the fights are forgotten. So all scraps we had were for the betterment of the band, to take the whole project further, and it was only for that reason.
If you don't have a manager, usually after a little while, everyone figures out what he or she is good at doing in the band other than what they're doing. So then you automatically start taking over the stars. I'll give you a little anecdote that I told them yesterday. I remember Jayesh used to do a great job of managing the band. And after being ripped off and staying in lousy places, we said we got to put things down on paper. So we had this one-page contract. And then with every show, we'd keep updating it. And I think when we finished, it was about 19 pages long. And it was a very frightening piece of document because when the organizer got that, he really made him shit. It made him think like, I better get my act together because these guys have really got their act together. And then on the hotel front, there was a line that always said, only 5-star hotel. And when we used to stay in a 5-star, and then it was in some place, the hotel was not too good. And I used to tell Jayesh, look, we don't really have to stay in a 5-star. So long as it's a clean room, a clean bathroom, and we have room service and all, it's fine, we can work with that. And he said, no, that's not acceptable. I said, why? He said, you don't understand. When you're sitting in a 5-star by the poolside and drinking a beer, and the next organizer comes to you and he sees you sitting there, this is a big wake-up call for him to think that, oh shit, I can't put these guys up in there. This is the way so this is the way Jayesh's brain was working. I would have never thought of
house won't do it.
I would have never thought of that, but it made logical sense, that's so you find your sort of niche, what you're good at, and then if you don't have a manager. And
also,
then
Jayesh is Gujarati, so it comes from all of that good thinking.
Since we've been working with independent music, this is a conversation we have on my classes. How do you define independence? When you started out, you had the support that a lot of bands today, even today don't. You had a record label supporting you. You had music videos going on MTV, and then at that point in time and this point in time, do you consider yourself as an indie band, or how do you define indie?
Let me clarify one thing. We got no support from any record companies. We released our albums through a record company. Let me rephrase that. We got support from the first record company, from CBS India.
Okay.
When we released the first album, we were Renegade. And the man who ran CBS India, I think he's passed away now. He's a really wonderful guy, R.V. Pandit, who had no reason to get into the music business other than he thought that it would be a great thing to do. He was in publishing. Okay. And he wanted to promote Indian bands doing this kind of stuff, making their own music. And he heard us, and we'd gone to the USSR at the time in 1988. And he was quite impressed, and he wanted to sign us. But after that, their distribution wasn't great, but that wasn't his fault, not for want of trying. After that, the subsequent labels that we did, there was very little support, really. What we did was, we basically funded our own albums. We recorded them ourselves, and then at some point we went and said, you guys want to release this album? They all wanted to build up their profile of their companies. So they said, okay, and sometimes we got a full reimbursement, sometimes we didn't. Most people seem to think that we were making a lot of money, which is quite the contrary. Even if we were doing a lot of gigs and getting paid reasonably well, a lot of money was going back into the next project we did because we funded everything ourselves. So we've been indie from day one. There is, in any case, everybody's in this aspect of the entertainment business in this country. It's non-Bollywood, it's all independent. You may have a record company, but they're doing very little for you. Even with the videos, the record companies didn't finance the videos. We went and struck deals with corporate houses.
White Light.
Well, White Light is they're filmmakers, they're a production house. But they still needed money to make the video. I mean, there was first UTV, Devin Pote, then there was Shubhida Namita of White Light. But what we did was, we went to corporate houses and said, if you give us money, here's a band. And MTV was really supporting us a lot. So we would tell them, you give us some kind of indication on paper that you're going to give us a certain amount of exposure. And, because companies are looking for a certain amount of assurance that video is going to go on air and get played. Otherwise, they just sunk their money into a useless product. So we would do that. We go to companies and say, MTV is really into us. We really want to promote us. We want to make good quality videos. And of course, we also played a bit of a game, but we fought to keep those products out of the video. We didn't like the whole idea of product placement in videos, which has now become the standard, which is terrible, unfortunately. But we wanted to maintain a certain amount of integrity in those videos. So we strike deals with them, parallel deals, and say, you give us so much money to make a video. And when we go on tour, we'll give you publicity irrespective of whether you're part of that sponsorship or not. For example, Hayward's was one of Beer was one of our sponsors at the Top of the Rock video. And in any case, in those days, you couldn't put beer, like even now, in commercials. But we recorded a jingle, we composed a jingle for free for them, a radio commercial. We put up Hayward's banners wherever we went. So everything we did, actually, we did completely independently and by ourselves. So we got very little support. The support we got was from the TV channels. But MTV also saw in us a band that could connect them to the young
audience they were looking
for. Yeah, it wasn't a charity thing, it worked for them as well.
Since we're talking about music videos, a lot of artists today, music videos and independent bands don't really go together. And I think a lot of artists are playing with the thought that you make good music and it's going to get out there. So how important do you think, visibility, not only in terms of playing gigs, but like you said, you went and marketed yourself and you put videos on there. How important is that visibility to a band even today?
Visibility is very, very important. It is actually very important because a simple adage would be you make a product and nobody knows it's there, they're not going to buy it. Simple as that. You've got to put it up on a shelf. If you whatever it is, you've got like a bar of soap, you've developed a bar of soap with the most wonderful fragrance. If you can't see it on your shelf in the baniya in the grocery store, you don't know it exists. Visibility is key. Unfortunately, the death of music television as we knew it then has been a really big setback for musicians in India. Because that kind of exposure, I don't really know what is push advertising and pull advertising. Somebody explained to me that, I think it's called push marketing.
You're pushing your product to them.
Right. I don't know these things. It sounds very impressive. Pretty much music television did that because kids would switch on MTV or Channel V, whatever was available in those days, and they'd leave it on. Whatever you were doing, you were studying, playing video games, whatever it was, that stuff was playing. And at some point you heard something that you liked, you turned and oh man, I love that. Now for a band like us, it was really very valuable because with MTV, also we invested around those videos. We never took any money that we got for those videos home. Whatever we got from the company, we put straight into the videos. We were lucky that we also recruited and enlisted directors who really put their lives into it as well. I mean, they were so thankful to get an opportunity to make something that was not product driven, but here's a band, you can do your own thing, get as creative as you want, which resulted in White Light making Pretty Child, which is a beautiful piece of film, nothing else. So with everyone contributing equally, we created a video that the music channel really loved, and therefore they would put it 5-6 times a day on TV. You're somebody sitting at home, and by the third listening, that song is in your head, whether you like it or not. Hopefully you like it. So it makes a big difference. Today, we've lost that. So with YouTube, you can put videos on, but now you've got to find a way to get people, and I guess that's pull marketing. You've got to find a way to pull them to your product. And that's the hard part.
Since you've been working with film, I'm just trying to understand why this sudden shift towards, now you switch on an MTV, there's those 4 Bollywood songs in loop and there are 100 arts. So when that was working well for them, why did that shift happen?
But obviously it wasn't working well for them. I don't think they made money.
It's all that's on those channels is like reality shows.
Yeah, because it's
Some people are
very
fighting,
depressing to see that.
pulled down. That's obviously what the people want to see. They don't want to see.
Or
Like,
they
even if
think
you put
that
on-
that's what people want to
Yeah,
see.
even if you put a video out, they probably air it at 4 in the morning on VH1. That's the only
Yeah, that's
channel.
VH1 India has a show called India Rocks when it's VH1 India, which is weird.
And they're airing, the stuff that they're airing is all like American TV shows or like some other shit. But my point is, it's good if you have a video, you can put it up online and say like, you like the video, and you tell me, hey, check out this band's video. Maybe they like the video for the video or they like the video for the song. Either way, it works in favor for the band.
So I think the way, again, with technology today, you can get good cameras, not that expensive anymore. I don't know which model it is, but there's a Canon which you can...
SLR.
It's an SLR, but you can shoot, you can actually on hard disk, you can shoot. That's what Elvis, the guy recently made a little documentary, a little clip of us, just before we were relaunching the band. And he was using this Canon SLR with a hard drive that was busy recording film stuff. He had the right lenses, so it looked really good. Technology really makes it so much easier. I mean, everyone's got a hack. I mean, all due respect to Apple, I apologize for it, but everyone, pretty much every aspiring filmmaker got a hacked version of Final Cut Pro. So you can do everything at home. You can do stuff, and it doesn't even need to be. It doesn't need to be a video that looks like it was created for $100,000. Interesting. A friend of mine who's a musician, a friend of ours who's a musician in UK, he says right now the trend over there, even on television, is to have videos that look really lo-fi. That whole grainy home video look is really what the channels are looking for.
Like a concept footage.
Yeah, you got like really slick looking videos and no one's really into it. So there's an opportunity. You can make a cheap video, but get inventive. You got to find young film students who've got really good creative ideas. Bring them in on the process. It becomes his or her part of a good example on their show reel. You've got a nice video, and hopefully you've got a song that'll stick in people's heads.
Okay, Go did this video when they were dancing on the treadmill.
It's a
$200
fantastic
video,
video,
and they got 50 million views in
Absolutely.
video.
It's just that's it. It's a fantastic video. It's so beautifully done.
Now you're talking about that video, so now that makes me want to go and check it out. So there you go. Right there, I'm going to go listen to the band.
And that's your whole viral marketing that you were asking about. The buzz was so strong on that I heard about it. The moment I saw it, I said, man, what a freaking great video.
They performed the routine at the Grammys, Grammys or VMAs. That 10 minutes.